Hello, thrill seekers. Ready to be amazed? Because today we're diving into the supernatural realm with not one, not two, but 11 bone-chilling and 100 true paranormal ghost stories that will send shivers down your spine. So grab your popcorn and a cozy blanket, because you won't believe what you're about to witness. Are you brave enough to uncover these haunting mysteries? Let's get started. Remember to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our spine-tingling content. And if you've had your own paranormal experience, don't hesitate to share it in the comments below. Now, let's embark on this eerie journey together. Prepare to be amazed. My house may not be very old, but it's become a hotbed of bizarre occurrences that have haunted my nights and puzzled my days. You see, I've always been drawn to ghost stories and the supernatural. So perhaps that's why I left the door ajar for these eerie experiences. The first spine-tingling incident unfolded when I was just a white 6-year-old. Now, at the ripe old age of 14, I can help but recount it with a shiver. I remember it like it was yesterday. I ambled into the living room, clutching my cherished stuffed toy, a Watkins dog in my small arms. Without a care in the world, I placed it on its side, thinking nothing of it. But when I swiveled back around, my heart skipped a beat. The plush canine was now eerily on all fours, its button eyes glinting in the dim light. It sent a chill racing down my spine. As time passed, my house seemed to become a magnet for the eerie and otherworldly. The next hair-raising incident occurred just last year. My room sits directly above a workshop that was constructed by the previous owner, and there's a curious vent system connecting the two spaces. Through it, I've become privy to a most unsettling symphony. Unbeknownst to me, the basement would become a stage for phantom voices, even when the basement was vacant and all electronic devices were silent. Late at night, the vent system would channel the ghostly conversations of a man and a woman. The man's voice was always seething with anger, punctuated by vicious swearing and enraged shouts. The woman's voice, on the other hand, was tinged with sorrow and fear, her cries piercing the veil between our walls as he tossed objects around in a fit of rage. I listened, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to fathom the unearthly drama unfolding beneath my feet. This year, though, the haunted phenomena took an even more sinister turn. I began to see the apparition of a woman in a long, flowing white dress gliding through my living room during the early morning hours. As I attempted to wash away the dread in the shower one morning, I could distinctly hear footsteps and a woman's eerie laughter, despite being utterly alone in the house. But it was in the sanctuary of my own room where things took a truly nightmarish turn. One fateful morning, I slowly stirred from a harrowing dream in which grotesque, demon-like figures menaced me. As I tried to shake off the lingering nightmare, an icy chill abruptly raced up my spine. I found myself paralyzed, unable to move or even scream. The room seemingly plunged into darkness. Then, a sinister whisper slithered in my ear, dripping with malevolence. Thank you for the things you're going to remember in your head. The last straw in this macabre parade of supernatural events happened a few weeks ago, during one dread-filled night. As I lay in my bed, my gaze was drawn inexorably to a shadowy figure perched on my wall. It appeared to be a person shrouded in a dark cloak or some inscrutable form. Assuming it was merely a trick of the light or a figment of my imagination, I got up and rearranged the objects around. It was a humid and eerie night, July 19th, 2017, and I found myself driving alone on a desolate stretch of road in Alice, Texas. I'm just a regular construction worker, but the day had been anything but ordinary. I had spent the entire day in Alice, scouting potential job sites, meeting homeowners, and providing estimates for construction work. As the clock approached 6:00 in the evening, I decided it was time to head back to my hometown of Beeville. Before hitting the main highway, I couldn't resist the temptation to grab a bite to eat and enjoy a couple of beers in a local restaurant. By the time I got back on the road, darkness had begun to envelop everything around me. The headlights cut through the darkness as I drove, my mind occupied by the potential jobs I had assessed earlier. One of them had real promise, the kind that could bring in a substantial profit. I picked up my phone and called my business partner to discuss the details, setting up plans for meeting the next day. Little did I know this ordinary night was about to take a spine-chilling turn. The road ahead seemed endless and deserted, with no other vehicles in sight. But then, in the inky blackness, I noticed something peculiar. There were strange, shifting white lights on the left side of the road. Alice, Texas, was known for its pitch-black nights, and these lights were the only source of illumination against the void. As I drew nearer, these enigmatic lights began to transform, shifting from white to an eerie green, then to an unsettling blue, and finally settling on a deep, blue-red hue. My curiosity got the best of me, and I slowed down to get a better view. Eventually, I came to a complete stop, my heart pounding in my chest. Could it be another vehicle? The lights, now brighter and more erratic, seemed to dance in the night, moving up and down and in bizarre circular motions. I estimated the lights to be about a quarter mile away, but in the inky darkness, it was hard to judge distance accurately. Thoughts of UFO sightings and alien encounters raced through my mind, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was about to experience something out of this world. With the engine off and my window rolled down, I strained to hear any sound emanating from the lights, but there was nothing, only an unsettling silence that sent shivers down my spine. The atmosphere grew increasingly eerie. The lights, now pulsating with a menacing glow, seemed to be aware of my presence. I decided it was time to leave this unsettling scene behind and restarted my truck. But in a hair-raising twist, my engine coughed and died. Panic set in as I repeatedly tried to restart it, but it sputtered and struggled to life. In a desperate move, I turned off my headlights, hoping it might help. Meanwhile, the mysterious lights had transformed into a mesmerizing gold color, growing brighter by the second. Attempting to start the engine again, it miraculously roared to life. Yet, something extraordinary happened when I flicked my headlights back on. Their beams bent unnaturally towards the approaching lights. Defied all logic and reason, I believed my eyes as the beams of light from my truck shifted and contorted as if they were under the control of an unseen force. Fear gnawed at me, and I slammed the truck into drive, flooring the gas pedal to escape this nightmarish encounter. The beams straightened out as I accelerated, but in my rearview mirror, I saw the lights still in pursuit, growing brighter as they closed in. My heart raced as I wondered, what are they? Are they some kind of aircraft? Or something far more sinister? My speed reached 80 miles per hour, and I was sweating profusely, the terror building with every passing second. Glancing in my mirror again, I saw only one light now, but it was deceptive, as the lights were traveling in a single file formation, passing over me one by one. Inside my truck, the golden glow filled the cabin, casting an otherworldly aura. The lights continued their relentless pursuit, moving eastward as if guided by an invisible hand. My headlights continued to bend in their direction, an inexplicable phenomenon that sent shivers down my spine. This surreal spectacle continued until the lights disappeared from my view, perhaps obscured by a distant hill. For the remainder of my trip, I drove in a state of profound shock and disbelief. A memory of those golden lights seared into my mind. When I finally reached the safety of my home in Beeville, I was overwhelmed with relief. But the fear and uncertainty of that night's encounter would haunt me for years to come. So, gather round, my friends, for I have a tale that'll send shivers down your spine and make you question the very fabric of reality. It all starts with a legend. The legend of the skinwalker. Picture this, a medicine man who's gone over to the dark side, harnessing the power to shapeshift into animals and other people. By night, they transform into harbingers of pain and suffering. But this isn't just any tales. The story of Oliver Francis, a man who's not only seen things, heard things, but felt them. You see, Oliver hailed from a family of sensitized, where the paranormal was the norm. If you didn't experience the extraordinary, well, you were the odd one out. Francis would tell you that they didn't really talk much about these eerie experiences. No, they just accepted them as a part of life, which to them was as normal as breathing. But nothing could have prepared the Francis family for that fateful night 2 decades ago on a desolate road in Arizona. Their journey began when the family moved from the plains of Wyoming to the arid landscapes of Flagstaff, Arizona, back in 1978. Francis, fresh out of high school, embarked on a road trip to their old hometown in Wyoming, accompanied by their parents and younger brother. The only family member missing from the adventure was Francis' older brother, stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Their path led them along Route 163, cutting through the Navajo Indian Reservation and the town of Cayeta, nestled just south of the Utah border. Now, if you've spent any time in Arizona, you know the reservation can be a breathtaking yet unforgiving place for those who aren't native to its mystique. Strange occurrences are woven into the very fabric of the land, and Francis' Navajo friend had warned them about traveling through it, especially at night. Respecting local beliefs, the Francis family received a blessing from their Native American friends and set off on their journey. The trip to Wyoming was relatively uneventful, but it was the journey back to Arizona along the same route that would forever etch a horrifying memory into their souls. Picture this, a warm summer night, around 10 p.m. The Francis family's pickup truck was heading south on Route 163, about 20 to 30 miles from Cayeta. It was one of those moonless nights when the darkness enveloped everything, and you couldn't see further than the truck's headlights allowed, the kind of pitch black that would make closing your eyes seem like a relief from the abyss. Hours had passed since they hit the road, and the family had settled into a comfortable silence. Francis, their father at the wheel, and their mother in the cab, with their younger brother basking in the night air in the back of the pickup. Then, out of nowhere, their father broke the eerie quiet with a statement that would change their lives forever. "We have company," he declared. Francis and their mother turned around, peering out of the back slitter window. Sure enough, a pair of headlights appeared over the crest of a hill, disappeared as the car descended, and reappeared again. It was a momentary reassurance, having a fellow traveler on this isolated road. But as the minutes passed, Francis began to notice something odd. The car behind them should have crested the hill again, but it didn't. Maybe they slowed down. Her father suggested, trying to rationalize it. Or perhaps they pulled over at it. But Francis couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Why would someone slow down or stop in the middle of nowhere, miles from civilization, in the dead of night? She voiced her concerns to her father, who brushed it off, saying people do weird stuff when they're driving. Francis continued to watch for the headlights, turning around every few minutes, but they never reappeared. When she glanced back one last time, something caught her eye. The pickup truck was slowing down as they rounded a sharp bend in the road. The father had reduced their speed to about 55 miles per hour. It was at that moment that everything changed. The very atmosphere seemed to morph into something otherworldly. An eerie sense of foreboding crept over Francis. She turned her head to look out the passenger window, and that's when her mother screamed. Her father cried out, "Jesus Christ! What the hell is that?" Francis had no idea what was happening, but instinctively she locked the truck's doors and tightly gripped the door handle, bracing herself against her little brother. As her father switched on the interior cab light, the shocking truth became painfully clear. I'd never, ever seen my father that scared in my whole life. Francis recalls. Not even during his time in Vietnam or on any other occasion. The father's skin was as white as a ghost, and she could see the hair on the back of his neck standing erect like a cat's, bristling in fear. The same fear had gripped her mother, who was now shrieking in her native Japanese, her voice quivering in sheer terror. Meanwhile, her little brother was caught in a loop of repeating, "Oh my God." The pickup truck continued around the bend in the road, and Francis could see that the shoulder dropped sharply into a deep ditch. Her father slammed on the brakes to avoid swerving into the abyss, and as the truck slowed to a stop, something unimaginable happened. From the depths of that ditch, something leapt out at the side of the truck. Francis' eyes locked onto this nightmarish entity. It was dark-haired and stood at eye level with the passengers in the cab. But if this was a man, it was like no man she had ever seen. It was covered in what appeared to be man's clothes, wearing a white and blue checkered shirt and long pants. High pink jeans, Francis testifies, her voice quivering with fear. Its arms were raised over its head, nearly touching the top of the cab. The creature hovered there for a few agonizing seconds, its yellow eyes piercing through the cab's interior, and its mouth was grotesquely open. In the midst of this surreal horror, the room itself seemed to distort and freeze. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the creature vanished from their sight, and the pickup truck sped away. Francis couldn't believe her eyes. It was like a hairy man in clothing, but it was unlike anything she'd ever seen before. And then, she asked a question that would haunt her forever. Why would a driver slow down or, worse yet, stop at the bottom of the hill in the middle of the night, with nothing around for miles and miles? The family finally reached Guyana to refuel, their hearts still racing with fear. As they stretched their legs and rested for about 20 minutes, the car that had followed them never showed up. It was as if it had vanished into thin air, swallowed by the night. But here's where the story takes a terrifying turn. Just a few nights later, around 11 p.m., and Francis and her brother were rudely awakened by the sound of drums. The rhythmic beating seemed to reverberate through their bones. They peered out of their bedroom window into the backyard, enclosed by a wooden fence. At first, there was nothing to see, just the dark expanse of the forest beyond the fence. But the drumming grew louder, and then, as if summoned by some malevolent force, the shadowy figures materialized behind the fence. These figures were trying to climb over, but they seemed unable to lift their legs high enough to clear the wooden barrier. Unable to gain access to the yard, the figures began to chat, their eerie voices carrying through the still night. Francis was gripped by fear. She slept with her little brother that night, seeking comfort in their shared terror. In the days that followed, Francis couldn't shake the feeling of dread, confided in her Navajo friend, hoping for an explanation to the bizarre events that had unfolded. Her friends would send chills down her spine. That was a skinwalker, her friend said with a gravity that made Francis shudder. Skinwalkers, creatures from Navajo legend, were witches with the power to shapeshift into animals. But what had happened to Francis' family was exceedingly rare, as skinwalkers typically didn't bother non-natives. Why would they want my family? Francis asked, bewildered. Her friend's response was chilling. Your family has a lot of power, she said. They wanted it back. The Navajo woman went on to explain that skinwalkers had indeed visited their house that night, and they wanted the family desperately. They were willing to expose themselves, something they rarely did, just to get to them. In the light of day, the Navajo friend blessed the family's property, their vehicles, and even the family members themselves. And since then, they hadn't been bothered by skinwalkers. But as Francis puts it, she hasn't ventured back to Canada, nor does she travel through the North Country at night alone. She carries a weapon and protective amulets, a testament to the enduring fear left in the wake of those horrifying encounters. So, my friends, the next time you find yourself on a lonely road in the dead of night, and you see a pair of headlights trailing you, remember the tale of the Francis family and the skinwalker. For in the heart of darkness, There are things that defy explanation, things that make the bravest souls tremble, and things that will forever haunt the depths of your nightmares. It was a gloomy August evening in 2019. My husband and I were driving back home along the eerie stretch of Highway 36, winding our way from St. Joseph, Missouri. Our residence just north of Hiawatha, Kansas. The clock had just struck past 9 p.m. The night had draped itself over the landscape, casting an ominous shroud. As we cruised through the road that meandered between Vina and Troy, we encountered a gentle curve to the left. On the left side of the road lay a picnic rest area, and on the right, the remnants of a decrepit old railroad bridge. But what caught our attention was what lay at a massive, foreboding mansion looming on the right, just after the curve. We were ascending a slight incline when terror struck, right before our very eyes. A deafening explosion echoed through the night air. In an instant, my mind raced, convinced it was a head-on collision. Panic surged through my veins, and I instinctively began fumbling to put my shoes on. Thoughts whirled in my head at a dizzying pace, realizing that I might have to assist injured souls or even extract bodies from a blazing wreckage. Amidst the case, all we could perceive was an impenetrable curtain of thick, inky black smoke, stretching menacingly across the entire width of the road. Through this ominous haze, we could make out the sinister glow of orange flames illuminated by the haunting yellow headlights of the wrecked car. In that heart-pounding moment, I felt an adrenaline-fueled rush of dread that defies description, while I gazed through the murky windshield, desperately trying to make sense of the catastrophe that had unfolded before us. I might have let out a scream. Simultaneously, my husband was slamming on the brakes and swerving onto the shoulder of the road, our vehicle teetering on the precipice of a nightmarish scenario. But then, as quickly as it had come, everything vanished into thin air. It was as though we were witnessing a surreal, otherworldly, even a fiery explosion, followed by an abrupt rewind. The thick smoke, the swirling dust, the eerie glow of the headlights, and the menacing flames, everything simply dissipated into the night sky. I can't emphasize enough how utterly baffling this was. It was like watching a supernatural movie reel. And then there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not a car in sight on that most terrifying stretch of highway. My husband and I exchanged stunned, wide-eyed glances, rendered utterly speechless and shaken to our core. The car that had been tailing us in the aftermath of the inexplicable explosion now cautiously maneuvered around us and slowly merged back onto the road. They had undoubtedly witnessed the same inexplicable phenomenon. I turned to my husband in disbelief, my voice trembling. "You saw that, right?" he replied, equally incredulous. "Yeah? Why do you think I slammed the brakes and pulled over?" As we cautiously resumed our journey up that eerie hill, I peered out of the window searching for answers, but what I saw sent shivers down my spine. The cars lay scattered down a steep ravine, a treacherous chasm that I hadn't noticed before. The sides of the road were steep and smooth, no ditches in sight. 2 days later, I shared this bewildering experience with my parents and posted it on Facebook. To my astonishment, my dad and several friends revealed that 3 men had lost their lives on that very curve. It sent a chill down my spine to discover that there was a memorial cross by the side of the road next to the picnic area. I embarked on an internet quest, hoping to find more information and pictures of the crash site. My determination led me to a news article dated August 2007, describing the tragic accident. While it wasn't the exact anniversary, it did fall in the same fateful month. However, I couldn't locate any photographs or details about whether the accident had occurred on that ominous hill. To this day, I am left with a chilling mystery. Was what I witnessed a chilling, supernatural reenactment of a tragic event that had occurred 6 years prior? Or was it something even more enigmatic and inexplicable? I often wonder if anyone else has been confronted by such an eerie, haunting experience. The heart of Chicago, back in 2009. There's a spine-tingling tale that my father loves to recount. Whenever he shares it, a shiver runs down my spine. It's a true story, one that has etched itself into our family lore. Picture this: my parents, unwed at the time, were embarking on a journey westward along the infamous 57, a little past 11 in the morning. Their car chugged along, the wheels rolling southward, when all of a sudden, it sputtered and died, right smack in the middle of the bustling highway. Now, imagine the horror my father felt as he frantically tried to revive the car, but it just wouldn't budge. My mother, she'll tell you with mighty terror, feared the worst of speeding cars smashing into theirs at over 70 miles an hour. They were sitting ducks, surrounded by vehicles zooming past, their little car trembling under the gusty wind. But that's when things took a turn for the eerie. Out of nowhere, as if materializing from thin air, a pitch-black pickup truck materialized behind them. It positioned itself in a peculiar shape formation, with its driver's side door perilously close to our car's rear bumper. It was as if the truck had dropped out of the sky. My father would recount how this mysterious truck managed this bizarre feat without a hint of effort. It should have taken a series of intricate maneuvers, but it just appeared. He nudged my mother and muttered, "What's this guy doing? He's going to get someone killed." Strangely, the driver of the truck remained motionless. He didn't get out. He didn't roll down his window. And he didn't even glance in my parents' direction. It was as if he were on a mission, a soldier following orders, his gaze fixed firmly ahead. Time crept by. About 45 agonizing seconds, and then finally the car roared to life. My parents breathed a sigh of relief. They glanced back, eager to thank the mysterious truck driver who had safeguarded their lives. But here's the kicker: when they turned to express their gratitude, the black pickup truck had vanished into thin air. It hadn't pulled ahead. It hadn't executed any maneuvers. It simply ceased to exist. To this day, my parents believe that they encountered an angel, or perhaps something beyond our comprehension, sent to protect and ensure their future. As fate would have it, in the years that followed, my parents became devoted ministers of the gospel, spreading their message to countless souls across the globe. My parents are truth-tellers to their core, and they recount this extraordinary tale as vividly as if it happened just yesterday. It's a story that sends shivers down my spine every time I hear it, a reminder that sometimes the supernatural might just be watching over us, guiding us on a mysterious path we can't quite fathom. Chilling tale that unfolded in the eerie depths of Los Angeles, California back in 2012. It all started when 3 of my buddies and I decided to break away from our mundane routine. You know, the usual. Staying and watching movies, or hitting the town for some fun. This time, we wanted something unforgettable. Something that would etch itself into our memories forever. It was 2:30 and the idea that brewed in Nancy's mind was one that sent shivers down our spines. She suggested we venture to Gravity Hill. You know the place, right? That spot notorious for its spine-tingling tales. Without hesitation, we all agreed. As we embarked on our eerie journey, excitement coursed through our veins, despite the nagging unease lurking in the corners of our minds. Picture this: a moonless night, 4 of us crammed into a car, anticipation hanging thick in the air. We'd heard countless stories about Gravity Hill, and our curiosity had gotten the better of us. But as we reached the fateful turnoff, an unsettling sensation washed over us. It was as if the very air had grown heavy with dread. My heart pounded, and I could see the same fear reflected in my friend's eyes. After a few minutes of silent contemplation, we exchanged glances and shrugged off the unease. Why not? We thought. We'd come this far. Might as well make the best of it. As we continued driving, expecting a short journey up the pitch-black hill, the reality hit us hard. This wasn't a mile. It was more like 5. The tension inside the car was palpable, and none of us dared utter a word. Finally, we reach our mysterious destination. The first thing to greet our eyes was a cemetery, and looming ahead, a massive white structure that bore an uncanny resemblance to an insane asylum in the heart of a graveyard. Swear on my life, I saw a shadowy figure, almost spectral, darting across the cemetery before us. My trembling hand checked the time. 3:15 and to compound our fear, there was no cell phone reception. Not one of our phones, each from a different service provider, had a bar of signal. We killed the engine, leaving the car in neutral, and sat in the pitch-black darkness. Within mere minutes, an inexplicable force started to move the car uphill. Our terrified eyes met in disbelief. Panic set in, and I fixed my gaze straight ahead, afraid to look outside the window, fearing what I might see. Nancy, who was behind the wheel, lost her composure and wandered out pronto. Now, here's the kicker. This was her brand new car, purchased just a week ago with her husband. As she tried to turn the car around for a hasty retreat, we inched forward, cautiously scanning our surroundings. The car, supposed to be pristine and powerful, couldn't go more than 20 miles per hour. It defied all logic. Our bodies felt like lead, as if some invisible gravitational force was yanking us back. Desperation settled in as we realized we were nowhere near the point where the car had initially moved on its own. In silent prayer, I beseeched divine intervention. We couldn't bear the oppressive weight pressing down on us, nor the fact that we were creeping along at a snail's pace. Unbelievably, the car refused to exceed 20 miles per hour for a whole mile. Fear not at us. We dreaded the car might just give up and leave us stranded on that desolate hill. Gradually, the car began to pick up speed, and as we approached the final turn leading out of the hills, my friend Kathy, sitting behind me, froze. She claimed to have seen a figure lurking by a tree, closing her eyes and praying fervently until we were clear of that ominous place. Another friend had drifted into slumber, albeit slightly inebriated. We finally arrived home, shaken to our very core. We vowed that if we ever returned to that accursed place, we'd bring a camera to capture whatever dark secrets the hill held. So, my friends, if you ever find yourselves tempted by the mysteries of Gravity Hill, brace yourselves for an unsettling journey into the unknown. You know, I got this bone-chilling tale to share, a premonition of death that haunted me as a child, involving my older brother. Picture this, I was a mere 6-year-old, and my older brother, 16, was more of a guardian angel than a sibling. It all went down in 1996, just a few days before Christmas. Our family decided to attend my brother's high school Christmas concert in the eerie depths of the high school auditorium. Now, as I sat there in the darkness, surrounded by the haunting melodies of the school band, something strange happened. It was as if the grim specter of death had decided to pay me a visit. I may have been young, but the memories of that moment are etched into my mind like dark graffiti on a wall. I can still recall the tiny details, like those creepy purple velvet drapes covering the auditorium wall. 1 minute, I was your typical fidgety kid, barely hanging on during the concert, hoping it would wrap up soon. But in the blink of an eye, an oppressive, ominous feeling settled over me. It was as if a heavy shroud of darkness enveloped the room. I couldn't pinpoint what was wrong, but something devastating lurked just out of sight, something beyond my comprehension. From that instant, I just knew a terrible, life-altering event loomed, and it had my big brother at its epicenter. I sat there in the dimly lit auditorium, silent tears streaming down my face. I was careful not to let anyone, especially my mother, catch on to my tongue. You see, if my mother had spotted those tears, she'd be all over me with questions, and my limited vocabulary at the time wouldn't have been up to the task of explaining what I was feeling. So there I sat, my gaze locked on those ominous velvet curtains, desperately trying to make sense of the impending doom and praying for that heavy feeling to dissipate. Over the next couple of weeks, I became a shadow, constantly hovering around my brother. He was my rock, my protector, and I needed him close. I wanted to confide in him, to share my fears. I lacked the words and the comprehension to express myself properly. Every time he left the house, panic would grip me, and I'd only find relief when he returned home. That oppressive, sinister presence hung over me like a storm cloud that refused to dissipate. Then, one fateful day, about a week into the new year, I was jolted awake, but it wasn't by my brother as usual. Instead, I found myself face to face with the pastor's wife. It was an eerie scene. A presence in my room instead of my brother sent shivers down my spine. My eyes flickered open, and there she was instead of my brother. I knew deep down that he was gone, and that he would never return. The dark, foreboding sensation that had clung to me like a malevolent shadow had vanished, replaced by a gut-wrenching grief and an overwhelming sense of guilt. I remember I was defiant when she asked what clothes I wanted to put on. I told her, "Billy dresses me every morning. I'll wait for Billy to come and get me dressed." I said those words almost challenging her, as if I hoped that saying them would somehow bring my brother back. But in my heart, I already knew the dreadful truth. She took me downstairs, where my 3 other brothers were waiting, and we met with our pastor. The solemn expression told us all we needed to know. Billy had been in a car accident the night before, and he was no longer with us. The air grew heavier, the room colder, and the world seemed to have plunged into a never-ending night. So, there you have it, my friend. The story of a haunting premonition, a sense of impending doom, and the tragic loss of my beloved brother. It's a chilling tale that still sends shivers down my spine every time I recall those eerie memories from that dark December in 1986. Oh, let me tell you a tale from the 90s, back when I was just a wee year-old living in the eerie landscape of East Sussex, UK. You see, my mother was a teacher at Michael Hall School, which had a peculiar secret hidden on its grounds, the Kidbrooke Mansion. Built in the ghostly year of 1837, it was a place where many teachers resided at the time. One fateful night, I received an invitation for a sleepover at the mansion. It was your typical kid's birthday bash, full of laughter and mischief. As the hours grew late, I suddenly awoke in the pitch-black hours of the morning, my bladder urgently demanding attention. With stealthiness worthy of a ninja, I tiptoed out of the room and began wandering the mansion's grand, dimly lit hallways. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a bathroom, and once my business was done, I decided to head back to bed. However, in that labyrinth of a mansion, I became disoriented. Lost and confused, I roamed the shadowy corridors until a mysterious woman, clad in a long, white nightgown with intricate lace details and a belted robe, suddenly materialized before me. She offered a warm smile as I nervously uttered, "I'm lost. I want to go back to bed." Without saying a word, she turned and started gliding down the hallway. I hesitantly followed her, my heart pounding with anxiety. After several twists and turns, she paused by a doorway. I peered inside and, to my astonishment, saw my own bed. I turned to thank her, but in the blink of an eye, she vanished into thin air. The next morning, I eagerly searched for this mysterious lady to express my gratitude, but she was nowhere to be found. Perplexed, I inquired with the adults about her whereabouts and ended up recounting the whole spine-tingling encounter. To my surprise, one of the elders revealed it must have been Lady Kidbrook, before reassuring me not to worry about it. However, my curiosity led me down a chilling path of discovery. Over the years, I learned that there hadn't been a Lady Kidbrook at the mansion for centuries. Dark legends swirled around the history of Kidbrook Mansion, one of which involved Lady Kidbrook's tragic fate. It was said that Lord Kidbrook, the mansion's original owner, had constructed it as a testament of his love for his wife. They were prosperous and content, raising 3 children within those hallowed walls. But there was a sinister side to their story. The eldest son, a sadistic tormentor, committed heinous acts, including the torture and murder of a black servant child brought over as a novelty status symbol. Tragedy struck when a devastating fire engulfed the east wing of the mansion, where the children slept. Everyone managed to escape, except for the cruel son and the youngest daughter. Lady Kidbrook, overcome by maternal instinct, rushed back into the inferno and met her untimely demise. The younger daughter was later discovered, safe in the arms of a servant who had miraculously escaped through the back of the house. The 2 tragic souls claimed by the blaze were Lady Kidbrook and her wicked son. This revelation made me wonder if the benevolent Lady Kidbrook I had encountered in the hallway that night was, in fact, searching for her lost daughter. It was an intensely vivid experience, one that I could not deny, and yet I never crossed paths with her again. 4 years passed, and our family had relocated to the rugged landscapes of northern Scotland. My mother was teaching at Clooney Hill, another grand mansion that doubled as a community center for the Thin Dawn Foundation. On a moonlit late autumn evening, I found myself outside, swinging on an enchanting swing hanging from a massive tree on the edge of the estate's gardens. The moon cast eerie shadows, allowing me to see clearly without the need for a flashlight. As I jovially swung back and forth, a feeling of being watched slowly crept over me. I became increasingly aware that I was not alone. Straining my senses, I detected faint, deliberate sounds, like something moving cautiously through the undergrowth and rhododendrons at the garden's edge. It was coming closer to me, and my heart pounded louder with each passing second. I mustered all the nonchalance I could muster, trying not to appear alarmed as I swung. After a few nerve-wracking minutes, I was convinced that someone or something was hiding in the bushes just 10 feet away, observing my every move. I abruptly stopped the swing, rose carefully to my feet, fixed my gaze on the shrubbery. There was a subtle and calculated movement reminiscent of my old target before he pounced on a bird. My instincts took over, and I sprinted toward the safety of the house. Panic surged through me as I heard something burst from the underbrush behind me, giving chase. My screams pierced the still night as I raced up the driveway. The relentless pursuit was so close, I could hear the creature's heavy, labored breath. Whatever it was large and menacing. I careened toward the front door, nearly stumbling as I reached it. As I desperately pounded on the door, my teacher, a look of profound concern etched on his face, swung it open just in time to pull me inside. In his eyes, I saw sheer terror as he stared over my shoulder. He let out a blood-curdling scream, then seized me, dragging me further to the safety of the house. As he clutched my shoulder, I turned to glimpse the monstrous entity that had pursued me. It was a colossal, ebony beast, its massive hindquarters vanishing down the steps toward the front lawn. The last detail I caught was the flick of a long, thick tail. Inside, the teacher continued to scream incoherently as he locked the door in a state of utter panic. Chaos ensued, with people frantically running about and yelling, and eventually, the police arrived. I was in a state of shock by then, and much of what happened afterward remains a blur in my memory. What I do recall vividly is the image of that teacher who had opened the door, still pale as a ghost, needing to be seated and calmed for an extended period. He insisted vehemently that he had seen a massive black panther chasing me, but the police were skeptical. They implied that I might have concocted the entire ordeal, or that it might have been a stray dog chasing me, with illicit substances perhaps playing a role in the teacher's account. The trauma of that night took a toll on the poor teacher, who soon resorted to heavy drinking just to find solace in sleep. Within 2 weeks, he suffered a severe mental breakdown and left the school. As for me, I developed an enduring fear of the woods, an unease that still haunts me to this day. The mysteries of those two encounters, one with the benevolent Lady Kid Brook and the other with the enigmatic Blackies, continue to send shivers down my spine whenever I venture near the depths of the forest. Once upon a time, not too long ago, my wife and I embarked on a chilling adventure that was meant to be a simple getaway to Gettysburg for her birthday. We resided in Maryland back then, so the journey was just a quick jaunt up the road for a weekend escape. Gettysburg might not be the most romantic destination on the planet, but we figured it would be an intriguing place to explore the historic battlefield and perhaps indulge in a corny ghost tour. As we arrived at our chosen hotel on that fateful first night, we had just wrapped up a self-guided CD tour of the battlefield, comfortably enjoyed from the confines of our own car. Eager to unwind, we checked in and headed to our room, waiting for a moment of relaxation before embarking on our evening plans. But when we pulled back the sheets of our hotel bed, a grotesque sight awaited us, blood stains smeared across the linen. Our stomachs churned in disgust, and without hesitation, we called the front desk, demanding clean sheets. To our dismay, they informed us that they were completely out of clean sheets. This wasn't the Ritz, mind you. We were staying at a Comfort Inn, however. They did extend an unexpected offer, a free upgrade to the suite. Who in their right mind would decline a free upgrade? We certainly didn't. We were told that the suite was located in a separate building across the parking lot, a quaint house-like structure nestled amidst the asphalt sea. This building had 2 rooms, an upper and a lower, and we were assigned the upper one. Little did we know this choice would plunge us into an unforgettable encounter with the supernatural. The upper room turned out to be quite spacious, featuring an open living room, a cozy bedroom, a surprisingly roomy bathroom, and even a faux kitchen. It was a pleasant surprise, and we were absolutely thrilled about our unexpected windfall that night. We decided to dine in town and then embarked on a ghost tour, albeit one that turned out to be more interesting than genuinely hair-raising. Oddly enough, we hadn't heard a peep about our hotel's haunted reputation during the tour. It was a fun evening nonetheless, and by the time we returned to the hotel, the clock had struck 11:00 p.m., and we were both thoroughly exhausted. As we crawled into bed, ready to embrace a night of rest, the unexpected occurred around 2:00, and I was rudely jolted awake by my wife's piercing screams, imploring me to wake up. Startled, I complied, and in her panic-stricken voice, she recounted a horrifying sight. She claimed that just before my awakening, she had seen a softball-sized orb of light hovering menacingly about 3 inches above my head. But the instant she cried out to me, the spectral entity had vanished into thin air. I never had the chance to witness this scenario, but my wife's terror was all too real. She's not the sort to conjure up tall tales, so I had no reason to doubt her account. We later learned the chilling truth about the room we had unwittingly occupied had served as Confederate headquarters during the Battle of Gettysburg, doubled as a field hospital. Unbeknownst to us, it was renowned as one of the most haunted places in all of Gettysburg. To this day, my wife refuses to forget that spectral encounter. She insists that she saw that orb, though she rarely brings it up in conversation. She fears that people will brand her as crazy for having experienced something beyond the realm of the ordinary, and who could blame her? Our unassuming weekend getaway to Gettysburg transformed into a spine-tingling tale of the supernatural that still haunts our memories. was 17, still navigating the tumultuous waters of high school, I couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping through my fingers. It was during those days that I found myself entangled in a spine-chilling episode, one that still sends shivers down my spine. I was dating my first ex-girlfriend at the time, and the events of that fateful night are etched into our memories with an indelible ink. Though we've since parted ways, the memory of that night lingers, refusing to be buried. We were enjoying a pleasant evening at her aunt's house, a cozy place nestled about 12 miles from my home. Her parents and my father were old friends, their bond stretching over a decade and a half. So, it was only natural for us to be close as well. That night, she was planning to spend it with me at my place, and everything seemed perfect. Our spirits were high as we embarked on the journey back home. We hadn't touched a drop of alcohol or indulged in any mind-altering substances. Both of us were dedicated high school athletes, and we were on cloud 9. It was smooth sailing until we reached the road that led to my dad's place, situated in a quaint American town. The clock had just struck 11 p.m., and I vividly recall the moment when I signaled a right turn. As I made the turn, my eyes fixated on an eerie sight that instantly plunged me into a deep abyss of confusion and dread. There, on the road, a kid clad in a red hoodie and blue shorts walked with an uncanny purpose. Questions flooded my mind. Why would a child, no older than 11 or 12, the streets at this ungodly hour? Was he okay? Where was he headed? An instant, the joy and happiness from the night's events was sucked out of me, replaced by an overwhelming sense of despair and foreboding. I executed the turn, but my gaze remained fixed on the child. What I saw next chilled me to the bone. The boy suddenly veered in front of my truck. My heart pounded as I slammed the brakes and swerved to avoid him, coming to a halt mere inches away from his tiny frame. The worst had occurred. In that split second, I realized that I had narrowly avoided turning a child into a grotesque speed bump. Our eyes locked. His face etched with a haunting expression. His vacant stare, directed slightly upwards, revealed eyes that were entirely devoid of color. It was as if I was staring into the abyss of a real-life zombie, his face a canvas of cluelessness. It was a sight that seared into my memory like a brand. Beside me, my ex-girlfriend was gripped by sheer panic, her voice trembling as she pleaded, "It's not real, please go. It's not real." I was gasping, unable to find the right words to articulate the sheer terror that had enveloped us both. My instincts kicked in, and I hit the brakes once more, putting some distance between us and the boy. I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see someone, but there was nothing. The boy had vanished into thin air. Reluctantly, I opened my door, hoping to make some sense of the inexplicable. I stepped out, my heart racing, scanning the area for any sign of the child. But there was nothing but an eerie silence, punctuated only by our own panicked breaths. I returned to the driver's seat, and we drove to my dad's place in a state of utter disbelief. I forced my father to accompany us on a ride back down that same road and through town, desperate to find any trace of the boy. To our astonishment, the town seemed deserted, like a ghost town, even though it was a Saturday night. We barely slept that night, keeping the lights on and watching comedies, attempting to drown out the disturbing memory. We couldn't escape the fact that what we had witnessed was real, and it gnawed at our sanity. The boy had never stopped walking, and by the time we sped away, he would have been right at the window. Yet he had vanished without a trace. The most confounding part was that, initially, there were no ethereal qualities about him. He appeared as flesh and blood as any living person. As the years passed, I often found myself pondering why fate had chosen us to witness such an otherworldly spectacle. Why did the boy want us to see him? Was there a purpose to his eerie appearance, or was it simply a chilling twist of fate? I even attempted to uncover any records of accidents or deaths on that road, but my search yielded nothing. To this day, the memory of that night haunts me, a chilling enigma that defies rational explanation. One eerie summer, my girlfriend and I embarked on an adventure straight from our bucket list, a 4-night stay on the infamous 4th floor of the Stanley Hotel. You see, this floor is renowned for its spine-chilling hauntings, with paranormal activity reported in every room. Little did we know that our trip would plunge us into a world of ghostly encounters that would forever haunt our memories. Our hair-raising journey commenced the moment we stepped into the hotel's old, creaky elevator. As the rusty doors closed and the carriage ascended, we both froze in terror, our hearts racing as we heard a faint, chilling whisper. I glanced at my girlfriend, my voice trembling as I asked if she had heard it too. Her eyes widened in fear as she confirmed the unsettling truth. She had indeed heard it. One eerie night, we ventured into town and stumbled upon a peculiar bar known as the Whale Bar. Its quaint, eerie atmosphere made it one of the most memorable drinking spots we'd ever encountered. We returned to the Stanley Hotel well past midnight, around 2:00 a.m. The lobby was bathed in an eerie delight that seemed to breathe life into its historic surroundings. Unable to resist, I snapped a few pictures to capture the haunting beauty. The next morning, we woke to an inexplicable anomaly in one of my photos. To our terror, the image appeared to depict the ghostly figure of a child. Some doubted our claim, but we were certain of what we had witnessed. More strange occurrences followed, amplifying our dread. My phone inexplicably bounced around on my stomach, even though it was placed firmly on the bed. My girlfriend, fresh out of the shower, shivered as phantom hands seemed to glide down her back. Throughout our stay, we heard unsettling footsteps in the attic above our room, a relentless reminder of a haunted history that plagued the Stanley Hotel. Yet, the most harrowing experience occurred when we crossed paths with another couple who were also seeking paranormal encounters. Casual conversation took a chilling turn when the girl revealed they were staying in room 117. The very room where Stephen King had stayed and found inspiration for The Shining. Driven by curiosity, I politely inquired if we could visit their room. What followed was a haunting electronic voice phenomenon, session that sent shivers down our spines. When we asked the ghostly presence if it worked at the Stanley, we received a clear, spine-tingling no in response. It wasn't my girlfriend's voice, nor was it anyone else's in the room. It was an otherworldly voice that left us paralyzed in fear. And then there was the detector supplied by a device that measures electromagnetic fields and is believed to detect the presence of spirits. We asked if the spirit was a child, and the device unequivocally responded with a chilling yes. When we probed further, asking if it was a little girl, the response remained the same. However, when I dared to ask if it liked games, the meter erupted in a frenzy, its needle spiking to the maximum. Without a moment's hesitation, I bolted down the hall, leaving my girlfriend and our fellow witness behind. Remarkably, as soon as I made my escape, the detector plummeted to its lowest level, and all paranormal activity ceased. It seemed the ghost did enjoy playing tag, and that night, I unwittingly found myself in a chilling game with the supernatural, an experience that would forever haunt my dreams. For more bone-chilling narratives that will keep you at the edge of your seat, subscribe to my channel. By doing so, you'll gain access to a growing collection of real-life horror stories that will both captivate and energize your senses. Join the community of fellow enthusiasts, and together, let's explore the eerie unknown. Subscribe now, and prepare for more terror-themed true tales that will leave you craving more.